Yo, what's up guys, we're back, and this week it's for a huge card. It's UFC 271. We got Israel Adesanya defending his belt, taking on one of the best middleweights of all time, Robert Whittaker, in a rematch. So this is the battle of New Zealand versus Australia, one of the best fights of the year, 100%. So definitely super excited for this one. We got Brunson on the card, Derrick Lewis, Bobby Green's on this card, Roxanne Modafferi's having a retirement fight on this card. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to here, but just right before we get the video started, I want to give a big shout out to everyone that's been supporting on Patreon. We've been doing really well this year so far. We've been up around 13 units so far on the year, which you already would get your money back on the amount of money for a yearly service a lot of times over if you decided to join the Patreon. So hopefully we can keep that going on this card and the other cards that are going on this week. I am going to be looking into the Fury FC card, LFA, and maybe a couple other cards if they drop some odds there. So going to have some more content on the Patreon over there for you guys that are already on there, and for people that want to join, I do recommend it, obviously. And yeah, just make sure to put a like down below on this video. Let's try to get 200 likes on this video. That would be awesome. Put some comments down below. Let me know what you think about my picks, who you think is going to win in the main event, who you're betting on, all that stuff. I would be interested to see what your guys' opinions are. But yeah, let's break down this first fight here. We got Jeremiah Wells. He's going to be taking on Blood Diamond Mike Mathetha. He's a training partner of Israel Adesanya. And he got signed a while ago to the UFC. I'm not sure why he hasn't competed yet. He was supposed to fight Orion Kosi a while back. I think Kosi pulled out with it. Or actually, never mind. He was supposed to fight Kosi on this card, and Kosi pulled out. Wells had another opponent, and Wells' opponent pulled out, so they just put them together. And that's a massive step up in competition. You know, Kosi was a guy a little bit closer to the experience level that Blood Diamond was, but Blood Diamond was signed to the UFC last year. I'm not sure why it's taken him so long to get a fight here, but obviously he's only 3-0 in MMA, and he has some kickboxing fights, but as far as MMA goes, he doesn't really have very much experience. Went pro in 2017, and he's only fought sporadically. He fought once in 2017, once in 2018, and then most recently fought in February of 2020, so it's been over 2 years almost since the last time that he's fought. So it's really hard to get a great read on him. He is a guy that's very entertaining to watch. Super explosive, super fast. He has big power. He has some okay head movement and pull counters. Really good jab, 1-2, and some nice kicks. He can throw high kicks from really close range and kind of strikes that you don't really expect people to throw. Kind of like he has a weird striking style, but it's effective. He'll throw some nice front kicks. He mixes in a lot of spinning attacks. He'll even throw like rolling thunder. So he lets it all go. He's pretty dynamic. And on the inside, in the clinch, he does have some good knees. So he's a dangerous striker. I mean, he can knock you out. I've seen him knock out guys with some really weird techniques. But defensively, he does get rocked. It's almost as like sometimes he baits fighters to come into range sometimes after he gets hurt and tries to land a shot on him and take him out, but very hittable. He did get hurt against Dimps Gillies in one of his MMA fights. Seems like a little bit of an unrefined striker, not very technical. He can get himself out of position. I've seen him get clipped hard in certain fights, and he has to be careful to blitz in when he's hurt because, you know, he leaves his chin up there and gets real wild. But he definitely is dangerous as well when you know, you hurt him, so you have to be a little bit careful to just go in for the kill, kind of nonchalant. So the guy is kind of a scary striker to deal with, but also you can get to him and hurt him. And I feel like Jeremiah Wells, a guy that has big power, could even put him out on the feet potentially. But his grappling, Mike Mathetha's is an unknown. I do think him kicking in close range and a lot of spins makes him susceptible to being taken down. He also does give up the center. I've seen him get backed up to the cage. It looks like he slows down a bit in his fights as well. In the third round, he got tired and started shooting takedowns in his last MMA fight. Ended up getting reversed. He got put on his back. He got controlled against the cage for a little bit of time in the third round. And, you know, this is a gigantic step up in competition from, you know, a guy like Dimps Gillies to Jeremiah Wells. Jeremiah Wells is super fast. He has great movement, really good distance control, throws big bombs. He can be a little bit low volume on the feet, kind of risk averse, and make fights close. And sometimes guys can kick him from the outside and make it boring. But in this fight, he's a black belt. He trains at Renzo Gracie Philly. Those guys always come in with good game plans. They have all fighters currently in the UFC, I believe, are undefeated. So Jeremiah Wells came in there against Warley Alves, got that huge knockout. But in this fight, I think he's going to use his black belt, use his grappling. He's going to use his big punches to get inside, get the takedown. And I think he could probably get the fight to the mount and get the submission. Don't really know much about Matita's ground game, but I don't really think it's going to be that high level. And even if it stays on the feet, unless Blood Diamond lands a crazy spin or a big kick or something that just knocks Jeremiah Wells out, I think over time Wells is going to kind of start to get that rhythm, and he's going to be able to start to do well on the feet as well, land on Blood Diamond, who I feel like is a little bit too hittable, unrefined. And especially if he can mix in the takedowns, I think it'll open up the striking even more. So I think Wells definitely should get the win here. I mean, the guy has had 5-round title fights, been in there with way better competition on the MMA scene. Blood Diamond 3-0 in MMA, hasn't fought in almost 2 years. It's going to be tough for me to listen to anyone convince me that he should be the favorite here, is going to get the win. I mean, obviously he has a chance to get the knockout. I'm not saying that Wells should be like a minus 1,000 favorite or anything, but I do think Jeremiah Wells definitely should get the win here unless he drops the ball and is clearly a superior guy on paper. And this next fight, this should be a fun fight. We got another bantamweight fight that's excellent. I mean, these two guys could definitely be high-level guys at different weight classes, but at bantamweight, man, it's tough to crack that top 15. It's tough to even crack that top 25, top 50. We got Douglas Andrade, who's getting up there in age. I mean, he's 36 years old at this point, but he's been a bad dude in the division for a long time. Just recently, he had a big-time win over Gaetano Perello with a big finish. So he got kind of back on the map. And even his fight before that with Lerone Murphy, very competitive fight against a guy that's moving up in the rankings. And Sergey Morozov, he is a newcomer to the UFC relatively. He's only had 2 fights. He had his first fight in there against Umar Nurmagomedov. He was able to lose that fight by decision. It was not really that competitive. He was just kind of out-grappled a little bit in that fight. And he actually got submitted, actually. I'm not sure why I said decision. I believe he did get submitted with a rear naked choke now that I'm thinking about it. But he came back, he fought Khalid Taha, who's proven to be pretty tough. I mean, he's had some good fights against some good fighters, but Sergey Morozov was able to blanket him, hit some takedowns, and kind of go back to his regional scene style to get the win, which he couldn't do against Nurmagomedov. But with Douglas Andrade, he's obviously going to want to keep it on the feet in this one. The guy is really good on the feet. He has big power. He is very explosive, throws some nice combinations, good kicks, good punches. He's really good in the clinch. And, he's just very powerful. He's hard to take down. He's durable. But, I feel like his grappling at some times can kind of not work out for him. He can get taken down. He can get controlled on his back. He likes to play guard game. And in this fight, even though I do think he has a advantage on the feet, I feel like he has a chance at getting the finish. And if he could stop the takedowns, I do think he'll beat up Morozov with his combinations, his pressure, and just being the bully in there. But Morozov's a guy that has good movement on the outside. He could bounce around, kind of be evasive. And he has decent counters, and he has power himself. He's the younger guy, and he could wrestle, control you on the ground. His submission defense is good. And Andrade, even though he likes to play the guard game, I don't really think he's a huge threat to get the submission off his back, so it becomes a detriment to him in terms of winning the fight. So I just feel like Morozov, being the younger guy, being the grappler, is going to be able to go in there, hit the takedowns, and that's going to be the difference in the fight. But when you got a guy like Douglas Silva de Andrade with all his experience, definitely has a chance in there. I mean, the guy's coming off a big win. He should have some confidence. I just feel like Morozov is going to be able to kind of make it a rough night for him with this wrestling, hold him down, make it a boring fight, and get the decision win. So I think Andrade is going to be able to maybe get a couple more wins in the UFC, but at 36 years old, he is definitely probably on the way out, and I think Morozov could make a little bit of a run here, so I'm going to go with Morozov by decision. And this next fight, this is a tough one to predict here. We got two young guys in their career with Jacob Malkoon and AJ Dobson. Both of them have 6 pro fights. AJ Dobson, he's an exciting guy. Finished 5 of his 6 fights, first round finishes. He hasn't really faced very good opponents. He did beat Hashim Arkaga, who is 6-0 on the Contender Series. He took out Kalen Hill, who was a 4-1 fighter, a decent fighter with a 45-second knockout. But this is a big spot for him, man. He's moving into a UFC debut. He's on a pay-per-view card. And if he can have a big-time performance here, he make it a shot up the rankings for his next fight. And he's a beast. I mean, he's very fast. He's explosive, aggressive, walks his opponents down and just unloads with straight punches, hooks. He blitzes forward with combination. He has a good blend of speed and power. And he's finished 3 fights via first-round knockout. Good high guard. And he'll throw nice, tight punches. He definitely has good technique. But he's willing to brawl. And he usually ends up on the right side of it. But his last fight, a little bit more wild than usual even. He got super wild on his punches. And he was getting clipped. So I feel like that could potentially happen here again in a UFC debut on a pay-per-view if he lets his emotions get the better of him. So he has to be a little bit cool and just be a little bit more technical. But Dobson was eventually able to drop his opponent in the brawl in that fight. And he throws in combination. He has good volume. Defensively, he does stay in the pocket too long, in my opinion. He doesn't move his head off center line. And fighters that can counter in the pocket, I do think are going to give Dobson a lot of issues. Dobson has not been late in fights in his career either. He's only been a decision 1 time, so that's another thing that it's a little bit hard to learn about him is his cardio. But he does have a wrestling background. He wrestled, I believe, in middle school and high school, and he has 2 rear naked choke victories. Grappling is a bit of an unknown overall. He has gotten a couple body lock takedowns in some fights I've seen. He got a takedown against John Gunther, who is at least an alright grappler. Got a takedown against Hashim on the Contender Series in his last fight. And he does have some good ground and pound. He eventually finished his last fight with a no hooks rear naked choke. And he does have a triangle and rear naked choke as an amateur. So he has a few submissions sprinkled in there overall his whole career. And his one loss was via armbar. That was an amateur loss, so got submitted in that one. Like I said, his cardio is not really known. It's hard to really say. All of his fights have ended in the first round, and besides the one decision, and I was not able to watch that fight. But this time it's Robert Whittaker's turn to have a training partner perform on the show, and it's Jacob Malkoon, who's 1-1 in the UFC, he's 5-1 as a pro, coming off a good victory against an established veteran, Abdulrazak Alhassan. And that was a big-time victory because he needed to perform. He had an 18-second knockout loss to Phil Haas in his UFC debut. And him and Dobson have the same amount of fights, but Malkoon definitely has the experience advantage. He has 2 UFC fights. He's been on a UFC pay-per-view. And I don't know what Malkoon did to someone in the UFC, but, man, they continue to match him up with these absolute hitters, man, guys that want to go out there and try to knock you out. This is the 3rd opponent in a row that Malkoon has had that has big knockout power and hunts the kill in the first round. But Jacob Malkoon, he's a guy that his last fight he did show some good wrestling, nice single leg. He was able to withstand that kind of barrage early from Razak. It didn't really go there in terms of he didn't really have to get knocked down and come back. He was able to kind of control the fight even early on a little bit, but he was able to get him tired and then really start to dominate. But Malkoon, he has good feints, good distance control, good boxing. He has good straight shots down the pipe, nice hooks, good check hooks. And I feel like in this fight he has to try to counter. He has fast hands. His kicks are sloppy. He can't throw kicks in this fight, I feel like. He has some good low kicks. He'll throw some body and head kicks, but he doesn't set them up. And if he starts throwing kicks in this fight, I think he could get knocked out. But he is sharp. He's accurate. He doesn't really have a ton of power. And his footwork isn't the best. He does have a tendency to get backed up, and that is an issue for him against more athletic guys like Dobson, who can back him up, force him in that brawl, and kind of take him out like Phil Haas did. Dobson doesn't have the same type of size as Phil Haas, but going to be trying to implement that same type of game plan. But Malkoon, he does have good timing on his level changes, and he sets him up with his strikes pretty well. Like, he'll kind of feint some strikes, feint some hands, then go down with the single. And his last fight, he got quite a few single legs. I feel like he did kind of catch Abdul Razak by surprise with the wrestling. This fight, I don't really know if he's going to be able to catch AJ Dobson by surprise. And Dobson does have that wrestling background, whereas Abdul-Razak obviously was a judo guy, but he doesn't have freestyle wrestling background. But on top, Malkoon, he has some okay ground and pounds, and he was able to control a little bit in that fight, but I feel like he's not really the greatest top control guy or the best grappler overall. He will attack guillotine, and off of his back, he isn't the best, but he has an okay get-up game. He has shown good cardio, so that's something that he's shown that his opponent hasn't. But, we have Malkoon, who did fight a similar opponent in Abdul-Razak in his last fight. And like I said, he surprised him with the wrestling. That game plan was smart. And, he has the cardio to grind and control over 3 rounds, and he proved that. And on the feet, he's going to be trying to land straight shots, land jabs, move, while Dobson's throwing these big, wide punches. But I think stand-up-wise, Dobson is just too fast and aggressive. Malkoon is going to try to finesse him, but I think that he's going to get walked down. And Dobson trains with the wrestling camp. He's with Matt Brown. He's with Mark Holman and those guys. He has a wrestling background. So I think that he's going to be ready for the takedown game of Malkoon here. And we've seen Malkoon get banged out early by Phil Hawes, so Dobson definitely has a chance to do that. I think Dobson is a superior athlete. He's faster fighter. He has more firepower. So I'm going to go with him by first round knockout. But honestly, if you're looking at this from betting-wise, I feel like Malkoon has alright value because he's proven that he can go longer. He's proven a little bit more in his career than AJ Dobson against better opponents. But ultimately, I think Dobson is just a little bit too good for him, even though he doesn't have the resume to prove it. I think he's going to go in there and show that he's the better fighter. So, going to go with AJ Dobson. And we're continuing the vein of the last 2 fights with this next fight. We got Carlos Oberg. He is another guy coming out of City Kickboxing. And we got Fabio Cherant. He's going to be fighting against him here, the Water Buffalo. He's going to be training out of Sanford MMA for this fight. So, it's take 2 for Carlos Oberg. And Carlos Oberg's UFC debut, everything was going good for him. And, you dominated Kenny Njeku early, hurt him multiple times. He was showing his striking prowess. And as the fight went on, though, you could tell the pace Oberg was pushing was not really sustainable. The fatigue started to kick in, and, he got clipped late in the second round and knocked out. But Oberg is a kickboxer. He's a tall, rangy guy. He's 6'4". He has a 77-inch reach and pretty skillful striker. Good jab, good 1-2. He'll throw some good crosses, good hooks to the body. He goes up, down pretty well. He has good kicks, does a good job of going jab, high kick, or cross high kick, so he sets up his high kicks fairly well. Good body kicks, and his last fight, he kind of let Kenny Njeku rope-a-dope him, though. He spent a lot of time just throwing punches while Kennedy was showed up, absorbing the shots, and Ulberg got tired, and then Kennedy started walking him down and took him out, and Oberg sometimes can stay in the pocket too long, and he has his hands totally down. His head movement is very limited as well. He doesn't really have top-end power, so all that leads to him having a lot of trouble in the pocket. He's decent in the clinch. He has good knees. He has good elbows. He can control this Muay Thai clinch. And in MMA, I think he needs to be all the way in or all the way out because he doesn't want to grapple, so he's not going to be quite as effective a striker until he can get more confident with his grappling. I do feel he's a good counter-striker. Kennedy not opening up and letting Oberg go first was a pretty good game plan. Trying to let Oberg go first. But, I think that Oberg's previous opponents, a lot of them have really went out there and tried to take his head off or close that distance, like Bruno Souza. And when you do that to guys like him, guys like Izzy, they can pull counter, they can hurt you, and they can knock you out. And he knocked out Bruno Souza with a really nice counter left hook. So, I feel like with this opponent, Fabio Cherant has to come in there with a good game plan, not overextend, be smart, effective pressure, and then probably try to get the grappling going. But Fabio Cherant has not had a good experience in the UFC this far. He's had 2 fights in the octagon and been finished in the first round in both of them. He got knocked out once, he got submitted once. But he's still young, and this is a step down in competition here, so he has a better chance of winning than in his previous 2 fights to me. He's been training at Sanford MMA, so he obviously is at one of, if not the premier camp in the world right now. Spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, or I don't know how much time, but I did see he spent some time with Henry Cejudo and Fight Ready as well. So he's definitely training with the best training he can get, and he's also on Instagram with guys like Derek Brunson, with guys like Phil Hawes. So he probably is training his wrestling. Fight Ready is a wrestling camp as well. But in all the fights I've seen of Fabio Cherant, he really does not look to grapple too much. He does have a few submission wins on his record, but those are front chokes of after fighters try to shoot in on him and take him down. Cherant is a fighter who likes to stay on the outside. He likes the counter game. He has a good jab. He'll look for the counter right hand. He has a good 1-2. He'll try to throw the check hooks. He likes to attack the body, but he's pretty low volume overall. He does have fast hands, decent counters. Defensively, he does allow guys to back him up into the cage. He holds his hands low. He is vulnerable in exchanges, and he's vulnerable to counters, and that's something that Oberg is going to thrive at if they do get in those type of scenarios. Cherant is also pretty flat-footed, doesn't check leg kicks, so that's going to be a big thing with Oberg as well, I believe. He got hit with some nice body kicks, nice leg kicks against William Knight in his last fight. Knight is not a guy that's known to be, the best kicker. And then Cherant did get knocked out with a check hook as Knight was moving backwards. I don't really think Cherant is a bad chin, but William Knight's just a unit, man. He's a guy that is a freak, so, he just ran into the wrong guy, got knocked out that night. But Cherant has some power, but he usually hurts guys and then submits them. He doesn't really get a lot of knockouts. I think he has no knockouts on his career. And he's not a great grappler. I mean, his front chokes are good, but he'll go for the front chokes instead of defending the takedowns. His takedown defense is not very good. Not very good off of his back. His last loss against Alonzo Menafield, he got slammed going for the guillotine, held onto the neck, got Von Flue choked. I've seen him get taken down a few times by UG in a CES fight. And his cardio to me also doesn't really look the greatest. So ultimately, I think this fight is a pretty good matchup for Oberg. Cherant, he's low volume, likes to keep it on the feet. Even if he does decide to grapple here, I've not seen him shoot a takedown in his career, and his cardio isn't the greatest. I think that Cherant is going to see that Oberg does have very limited head movement and try to work the straight punches, try to push the pace maybe, but ultimately I don't really think he's going to be able to grapple effectively or throw enough volume to get Oberg tired. In a range striking fight, I do edge Oberg by a fairly large margin. There's not much confidence on the play in terms of if you wanted to bet on it. I mean, we're getting to Oberg at almost 2-1, and he's only 3-1. He gassed badly in his last fight, showed poor defense, got knocked out. Both these guys are coming off knockout losses, so it's a tricky fight, but I am going to go with Oberg. I think that he's going to be able to eventually probably get the finish in this one. I just feel like he's a little bit better on the feet. I think that's where most of the fight's going to take place. So I'm going to go with Oberg via late first-round knockout. In this next matchup, we have a battle of two guys that were, once known as big-time prospects. Now they're trying to get back on the right track. Alexander Hernandez, he had one of the best debuts of all time. He knocked out Beneil Dariush inside of 20 seconds. But that may have been the worst thing that ever happened to him, though, because in retrospect, he was not ready to live up to that performance. Since that fight, he's only managed to go 4-3. And he did start his career 3-1. He beat Beneil Dariush, he beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier, he beat Francisco Trinaldo. So he had some good wins. He did have the loss to Donald Cerrone in between there, which was a bad loss for him. He got too ahead of himself. He's extremely confident. He was really brash in the lead up to that fight, and then he didn't perform. So that made the fans kind of turn against Hernandez. And I don't really think he's recovered his stock from that fight, but still under 30 years old, and he transitioned his fight camp to Factory X full-time. 2-1 since making that move, and 2 first-round knockouts. So his last fight was a good one. He went in there against an overmatched opponent. It was a short-notice guy that was making their UFC debut, but he treated them accordingly. He got the knockout early in the fight. And his wins against Mike Breeden and Chris Grutzmacher are not very high-level wins. Then he did have a competitive loss against Thiago Moises. Got knocked out against Drew Dober. But I still think that he has a lot of potential if he can put it all together. And beating Moicano would go a long way in proving that. But Renato Moicano, he bounced back in his last fight as well. He went in there with Jai Herbert, who's a good striker. And he had a good game plan. He took him down. He submitted him. And Moicano campaigned at featherweight throughout most of his career. Since moving up to lightweight, he's 2-1 in 3 fights, 2 rear naked choke finishes. And he did really well at featherweight. I mean, he started his career 4-1. He only lost to the best of the best at the end of the day in that division. His losses in that division came against Brian Ortega, Jose Aldo, and Korean Zombie. and he was able to beat guys like Cub Swanson, Calvin Kattar, Jeremy Stevens, Zubair Tuhugov. So, like I said, he did really well there. And even at 155, his loss came against Rafael Fiziev, who has title dreams at lightweight, is in the top 10. So all of his losses have came against pretty high-level opponents, and he has some pretty high-level victories. I would say, resume-wise, on paper, Moicano has the better resume. But when I'm just looking at this fight stylistically, we got Hernandez. He likes to use a lot of movement. He switches stances and then tries to blitz in with these big power hooks, big power straights, and he has really big knockout power, one-shot power. He can put your lights out. Renato Moicano, he's a guy that on the feet is very sharp, good 1-2s, keeps it long, good leg kicks, and at 145, being 5'11 with the 72-inch reach, he was super long and rangy, and that really gave a lot of guys a lot of trouble. Even at 155, he still can have a 2-inch height advantage over Hernandez in this fight. But, I feel like the thing about Moicano that we have known and seen in recent years is that his chin is not the greatest. He's been finished by strikes 3 times. And Alexander Hernandez is a guy that goes out there and goes for the kill, gets the big knockouts. So, I feel like this fight's going to come down to if Moicano can get control of the range early, or if Hernandez is going to bomb him out of there, because Hernandez is going to be moving around. He's going to be the guy with, a little bit faster, much more movement. I mean, Moicano is a little bit flat-footed, likes to, come forward, sit in the pocket, kind of slide out of the way of your shots with his speed, and then come back with his counters. Hernandez is moving around and being, very diverse in the way that he's trying to come at you. And Moicano is obviously going to be at his best in fights when he can get the takedown, control on top, uses jiu-jitsu, which is top-notch, and either get the submission or, hold you on the mat for 3 rounds. But with Alexander Hernandez, I don't really see him being able to take down a guy like that. Hernandez is really hard to find to just close the distance on and take down. And he also is a former wrestler, very strong guy, very explosive. And even if Moicano does get him down, I don't think he's going to be able to hold him down. So this fight is going to have to play out a lot more on the feet for Moicano. I think there is going to be a lot of danger there. Moicano does have those really nice straight shots and, solid leg kicks. And if he gets his timing early and really starts to chop at that leg, starts to land the 1-2s and his jab, and gets Hernandez kind of struggling to close that gap, then we're going to see Moicano probably run away with the fight. But Hernandez, in my opinion, is going to come out there. I think that he's going to be able to get the first shot knockout over Moicano. He's the slight underdog here, but I think that he's more explosive. He's going to be able to deny the takedown attempts, keep it on the feet with Moicano. And I think early on when he's moving around, when he's fresh, when he has that big power, I think he's going to clip Moicano and knock him out. So I just feel like Hernandez is a little bit more dynamic. He's younger. He's a little bit bigger guy. So I feel like Hernandez, being the more powerful, bigger guy, more durable, better grappler, I think he's going to be able to find that kill shot, get the knockout, and get a big-time win. So I'm going to go with Alex Hernandez here. And continue the prelims here. We got Ronnie Lawrence. He's going to be taking on Mana Martinez in this fight. And Ronnie Lawrence, he's someone that a lot of people have targeted as a potential fighter to watch. He debuted late last February, and he dominated Vince Cachero, and then he finished him in the 3rd round. And he tried to fight in July of 2021, but it didn't work out. He was going to fight John Castaneda. Castaneda had to withdraw, and then he was going to fight Trevin Jones, but I believe he had some weight cut issues, and he was forced to pull out. So hopefully this time Lawrence has his weight cutting issues under control, and he's ready to go here. But Ronnie Lawrence is a well-rounded fighter. In the stand-up, he's very mobile, quick, likes to dart around on the outside and make fighters come to him. He can switch stances, very elusive guy. He has good kicks. That's probably the best part of his stand-up, really nice leg kicks. He'll mix in some body kicks, some spins. He has pretty good high kicks. Isn't really looking to knock you out, but he just uses them to kind of touch you, rangefinder, get you a little bit, mad. You want to close that distance, and then he level changes on you. But his hands are not the best. He will dart in with some punches, try to catch fighters as they come in with some counters. I've seen him rip the body with some nice body shots, but mainly just uses blitz attacks with the hands to disguise the level changes. And he has good cardio, so he can keep the movement going for 3 rounds. He doesn't really slow down. He does leave some openings for some straight shot counters. To me, his defense is not the greatest. So against a good counter striker like Martinez, he needs to be on point, a little bit sharper. but he's never been finished in 9 fights, so he's shown good durability. And the most dominant trait is his wrestling. He has a great gas tank. His movement forces fighters to come to him, and when they overextend, he's there to get in on the legs and finish the takedown shot or get the body lock. And he's relentless. He can shoot endless amounts of takedowns. He doesn't usually waste many takedowns attempts, and he has good timing and finishes them well. When he gets on top, his top control isn't overwhelming. It's not the greatest, but he can tire guys out, and then he can finish them after he's taken them down 3-4 times. He doesn't have any submission wins, and he isn't really a threat in the jiu-jitsu area. But Lawrence, he's a guy that has a tricky style to beat because, when you want to move around, be elusive, guys have to close the distance on you, and then he just takes you down. So that's something that he is going to be able to do on a lot of guys, and if he can improve his defense, he could maybe jump into that top 15, top 10. But once again, a bantamweight, man, it's a shark tank. But Mana Martinez, he's getting to fight at home for a second UFC fight. Won his first fight by a close split decision. Martinez is normally a finisher, and with that fight, there was a lot on the line there with his coach just passing away, and you could tell that his emotions were really high there, but hopefully he can get back to his finishing ways on Saturday night if you're a Mana Martinez fan. And Martinez, I think, is a bit underrated at this point. When you look at his record, he has finished some serious fighters. He beat Ricky Tercios, he beat Jose Johnson, and he beat them both by first-round knockout. He did have the slip up to Draco Rodriguez and then the so-so show in his UFC debut. So he has to put it all together under the bright lights, but I feel like he's a good fighter. He is the more slick, skillful fighter in this fight, I believe. On the feet, he's very fast, he's sharp, he has power. He likes to open up with some low kicks. And I would look to more holster the kicks in this fight because he's going to be looking to catch them and take them down, Lawrence is. But, Martinez in his last fight, he did struggle a bit with the kick and movement-heavy approach of Guido Canetti, and that is the same approach that Ronnie Lawrence is going to bring. So Martinez has to learn how to be a bit more mobile, not so flat-footed when fighters stay in the pocket with Martinez, or he can back them up. He's super dangerous. He puts combinations together well. He'll rip body head. He's very precise, but when fighters are mobile and don't sit in the pocket with him, he tends to struggle to get his volume going because he tends to just look for that one big counter two or the left hook. He's pretty flat-footed. He doesn't check leg kicks, which is a big issue for him in this fight. And one thing that Mana does have, though, is that equalizer, man. And he has power in both hands. I've seen him knock guys out with one punch with the left hook or the straight right. He's not the greatest wrestler, and I do think he's going to struggle to stop Lawrence from taking him down. But what he does have is some solid jiu-jitsu. He will play guard, but he has good submission game. He has good sweeps. I don't really think Lawrence is going to be able to control Martinez early on the ground. But Martinez did get submitted in a scramble against Draco Rodriguez. He got put on his back a couple of times against Guido Canetti. And I think as the fight goes on, we're going to see Ronnie Lawrence start to be able to control him on the ground and be a little bit more effective with his grappling if it goes there later in the fight. I think if Martinez is going to win, I think it's going to be a flash knockout in this fight. I think he's going to be able to maybe catch Ronnie Lawrence with a big counter and knock him out, and definitely has the power and the capability to do that. But at the end of the day, I do think that the line is fairly correct. I think that Lawrence should be a pretty big favorite, and I just feel like his style is going to give issues to Mana. He's not going to stay in the pocket and let Mana have a chance to sit down on his punches and trade with him in the pocket. He's going to be moving constantly. He's going to be looking for the level changes. He's going to be kicking him from the outside, making him think, and I just think that he's a little bit too much for Martinez, so I'm going to go with Ronnie Lawrence in this one. But Martinez is 25 years old. He has a lot of skill, and I do think that he could potentially be back. Maybe he will put on a big-time performance in his home state, but I think Lawrence has his number for this fight. And this next fight, I don't really have a ton of thoughts on this one. I feel like this is a fight that I don't really want to have a lot to deal with this fight. I don't really have a lot of faith in either guy, but we got Maxim Grishin, who's not had a lot of success in the UFC. He's lost his debut, which was a defensible loss because he moved up to heavyweight. He fought a top 15 heavyweight Marcin Tybura on short notice, and it just didn't happen for him. And he was able to bounce back, and he knocked out Gadzimir Antigulov in his second UFC fight, but then faltered, lost a decision to Dustin Jacoby, and not only that, he missed weight by 4.5 pounds. So another loss here, maybe the end of the run for Grishin. So has to have a ton of motivation coming into this one. He is a really big light heavyweight. He's fought a heavyweight, and obviously now at 37 years old, he's struggling to even make that weight class at 205. But William Knight has exceeded most people's expectations through his first 4 UFC fights. He's gone 3-1, and his last fight was a major milestone for him. He was able to take out an established UFC fighter in Alonzo Menafield. Prior to that, he beat Fabio Cherant, he beat Alexa K. who neither of them had a ton of UFC success, and I don't know if they're UFC level fighters. But William Knight is coming in here on short notice for this fight, so that's something that you have to take into account. We have seen William Knight get tired in the past, like in the Dong Jung fight. So even though I do think that he's shown good cardio in other fights, short notice, being that big guy with all that muscle, I do think that it could maybe play a factor here. And Grishin is a really big guy for the weight class. He's going to be significantly taller and longer than Knight, which is something that Knight always has to deal with most of the time. But Grishin is probably the guy that has the best striking, the base capabilities to use his reach of anyone that he's fought recently. So, this is going to be a fight with William Knight that you're going to have to really decide what you want to do, because William Knight's a guy that doesn't have technical striking. I mean, the guy pulls back with his chin right in the air. He throws big, wide punches. You'll see him throw these like bolo hooks when he's backing up, he's kind of stiff with his striking. He does have some decent kicks, but the guy has crazy power, and he's proven in his last couple fights that he's getting more comfortable in the stand-up. He's getting more comfortable getting hit and coming back with return shots. And against Alonzo Menafield, man, that was the best performance he's ever had. He couldn't care less about getting hit. He was coming forward and trying to get it back. And whenever he blitzed Menafield and put it on him and landed, you could see the power that he had. He was rocking him bad. So Maxim Grishin, I don't know if Maxine is going to want to keep it on the feet with a guy like that, even though I do think that he's the technically better striker. And, if he can get his timing, get his jab and his straight punches going and start catching Knight as he's coming in, he could, highlight real William Knight. But William Knight also has the chance to close that gap and really knock him out. And William Knight's a very explosive, fast guy. Obviously Grishin's getting a little bit up there in age. The weight cut is kind of getting to him. So if he's a little bit slow, like a step slow, Knight could catch him, touch him on that chin, and put him out. But Grishin has been in there with some heavyweights, like I said, and he's always proven to be very durable. He's only been finished, I believe, a couple times by strikes in his entire career. He's fought over 40 times. And Grishin does have good grappling. We saw Dong Jung was able to take him down, with the body lock over and over, William Knight. And I think that Grishin could potentially implement a grappling game plan as well. He's had this camp in Russia, I believe, but he's also had a lot of camps at Extreme Couture. So just overall, he's probably getting a lot of good looks in the wrestling department. And he's a bit more skillful everywhere. He had the full camp here. He's in a winner-go-home scenario, in my opinion, in his career. And, I think he has the advantage in the striking and grappling. William Knight is a physical monster, and it, makes him live in any fight. Blue fighters have slowed down in the past, but, I just think Grishin's going to pick up the victory here in a do-or-die scenario. I think he's going to be sharper. I think he's going to be the better fighter. He has the height advantage. He's bigger. He is going to be able to maybe use his long strikes, land some punches, get William Knight to be over-aggressive, try to close that distance, clinch him, hold him against the cage, use his size, maybe hit a takedown or two, and get the win. I don't think he's going to overwhelm him and dominate him like Dong Jung or anything, and I don't think he's going to be able to knock him out or finish him on the feet more than likely, but I just think he's going to be able to kind of point him and get a decision. So I'm going to go with Maxim Grishin. So this next fight here, this is a rebooking of a fight that was supposed to happen a few months ago, but Alex Perez, he's making his return here, and his last fight was obviously the biggest fight of his career. He took on Dobson Figueiredo for the title. He had won 5 of 6 fights previous to that, and hopefully he can kind of get back on track and get back in the win column and start to put these fights together, because he had 3 fights canceled in 2021, or 4, I believe, maybe even. But, he was expecting to fight a couple guys, and they just never happened. But, man, hopefully he's ready to go against Matt Schnell here. The last time that he was supposed to fight Matt Schnell, I believe that it was the weight cut for Matt Schnell that stopped the fight, so it wasn't anything on Perez's end. But Perez has now fought in quite a while at this point, so hopefully he doesn't have any ring rust and he's just ready to go at full bore. But he's a pressure fighter, good feints, head movement, good high guard. and he's a boxer wrestler. I mean, his leg kicks have become a dangerous weapon for him. He finished UCA Formiga with low kicks in his last victory. But he has good hands. He likes to get on the inside, let go with his hooks to the body, to the head. He has power in both hands. He throws nice combos. And when he hurts fighters, he doesn't let him off the hook. He has killer instinct. You saw him take out Jose Shorty Torres. He is a bit more flat-footed. And I think he could potentially have a little bit of trouble with the range, the speed of Schnell. But, I think that his power is going to be able to counteract a little bit of that, and the leg kicks slowing down Schnell a little bit. And Alex Perez is a very strong wrestler. He has really good top pressure. He's a mauler. He has good ground and pound, very active. He does a good job of getting in a half guard, trying to trap the wrist, posturing up, working elbows, hammer fist. Pretty good submission game. He was able to arm triangle Jordan Espinoza, shown good front choke victories in the past. His submission defense has not been the best. Made to pay for that once again in his last fight. He got guillotined in the first round. And overall, he's been submitted 4 times in his career. If Perez wants to grapple in this fight, he has to be locked in and have his submission defense on point. Personally, I would look to keep it standing at least early in the fight. Later in the fight, Perez does have the cardio advantage, and if he feels he can get into a dominant position and go to work on the mat, then maybe he should do that. But I would look to just keep it standing if he can be successful there, because Matt Schnell is a very dangerous guy from his full guard. But Matt Schnell is a UFC veteran at this point. This can be his 10th UFC fight, and he's done fairly well. He's gone 5-4. He fought some good guys, and he's beaten some good guys like Luis Smolka, Jordan Espinoza, and Tyson Nam. He lost to fighters like Ralph Font, Pantoja, Hector Sandoval, Rogerio Bontorin. So most of those guys were ranked in the top 15. Most of the time when Matt Schnell is in there, he's either getting finished or finishing his opponent. On the feet, he's very skilled. He's a good offensive striker, good footwork. He has a 5-inch reach advantage against Perez, and he's going to need to use that. And he has good hands. I mean, he throws nice straight punches, good check hooks. He has pop on his punches, good calf kicks. The issue with Schnell is he just doesn't have very much head movement. He's willing to sit in the pocket and brawl when he has the clear advantage on the outside. And if you want to see a fight where Matt Schnell does follow the game plan and do that to a lot of success, watch his last win against Tyson Nam. He kept it long, used his length, his speed, his footwork. He picked Tyson Nam apart for 3 rounds. Tyson Nam is a fighter known for power, and Schnell was able to stay away from it, but Tyson Nam is also known as a guy that has low volume and could struggle to close that distance and land, so it was a good stylistic matchup there. He did get rocked hard by Bontorin in his last fight, Matt Schnell. He's been finished by strikes 3 times. And his chin is definitely a liability at this point. It is a difficult matchup for Alex Perez, because anyone that wants to take down Matt Schnell, that's going to be trouble at some point. Matt Schnell arguably has the most dangerous guard in the division. He's willing to pull guard and fish for submissions off his back. He's got multiple submissions from his full guard. He was knocked out with short hammer fist against Hector Sandoval on the ground, which was a weird thing that was very alarming. But outside of that, he has had a lot of success grappling. He was able to catch Luis Smolka and Jordan Espinoza with submissions. Even in his fight with Alejandro Pantoja, who is obviously a high-level grappler, Matt Schnell did fairly well on the ground with him. And Schnell has, had success being active in his guard with strikes as well. Good elbows, he can cut guys open. If you count the Ultimate Fighter, Schnell has 9 submission wins, and he's only been submitted twice. He does tend to get the finish early when he gets fights done, and if he can, he slows down in the 3rd round. His movement is less effective. He lowers his output, and in his last fight, he got tired. He got taken down in the 3rd round, and Bontorin was able to pass his guard and hold him down for the rest of the round. But this is a good fight. Perez, to me, is the more durable fighter. He has the better cardio, which are 2 major things in a fight, so I get why he's the big favorite. Matt Schnell, he has a range and speed advantage, and throws good straight shots down the middle. Perez does throw hooks, and Schnell is probably a bit faster. Schnell is dangerous for Perez to take down as well, because the submission threat is there, and Perez has been submitted quite a few times. The guillotine of Matt Schnell is fairly dangerous, and Perez needs to be composed in this fight. He can't go for the takedown because he's being pressured hard, because that's where he may be submitted. He has to be ready to take some shots early, probably be getting outstruck until Matt Schnell slows down a little bit, and then he could land some clean shots, start landing the low kicks, start slowing down Schnell a little bit. And I think Perez may be able to start wrestling late once he gets Schnell a little bit tired. This fight is fairly close in my opinion. I think both fighters can find each other on the feet, and I think Schnell has that submission threat on the ground. But Perez is more durable, he has better cardio, and he can control where the fight goes. So I think Perez is going to be able to go in there and get the knockout victory in this fight. Second round knockout for me. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a decision win either, but I'm going to go with Alex Perez. And we got another prelim fight, but this is a really fun fight here in my opinion. We got Casey O'Neill, who's a young, brash 24-year-old out of Scotland, who's undefeated as a pro and looking to continue her rise to the belt, but in her way as a pioneer of women's MMA who's making her final walk to the octagon in her 50th fight of her career, and that's Roxanne Modafferi. Casey O'Neill is the big favorite. She's younger by 15 years. She's 8-0 in her MMA career, 3-0 in the UFC. She's finished all 3 of her UFC fights, so she definitely has a lot of hype. And if you've been watching my channel, I mean, she's been a money train for us. She's been the underdog in all 3 of her UFC fights, and we picked her in all 3 fights and cashed on her. I believe she was a favorite against Dobson, but definitely in her last 2. And Modafferi, she's looking to end her career with a bang. I mean, recently she's lost 2 fights in a row, but she's always live to spring the upset. She's notorious for that, and she's gotten some big-time upsets throughout her career. And obviously, with this being her last fight, she's going to pull out all the stops to get the win. I don't really feel like Roxy's the type of fighter that is going to, half-ass her training camp or not try as hard or give up easier in a fight because it's her last fight. I feel like she's, a martial artist through and through, and she's going to see her whole career, out at the full potential. So I think that we're going to see, the best of Roxanne, and we're going to probably see the best of Casey O'Neill, and we're going to see what happens. But I feel like this line is pretty crazy, man. I mean, I don't agree with it at all, even though I'm a big Casey O'Neill fan of Roxy as well. I just can't agree with the line. I feel like if the line was maybe like minus 160, that would maybe be appropriate. But Casey O'Neill minus almost 400 favorite, I just don't agree with that. I mean, on the feet, it's finally an opponent that Roxanne, even though I think that Casey O'Neill is the better striker and she does have, the speed advantage. She'll throw some decent straight shots and she's good in the clinch with her knees and her elbows. I don't really think she poses a huge threat on the feet to Roxanne, and I don't think she's really, much of a girl that's going to have a big advantage on the feet either. If you look at Roxanne's last 2 fights against Tyler Santos, against Viviane Araújo, those are girls that are explosive, that can move, that have power, that could, really strike fairly well. Casey O'Neill, in my opinion, is not on that level technically on the feet, and I think Roxanne could take a lot more chances in the stand-up in this fight and not really be as weary of closing the distance or getting hit with a big shot or getting clipped. And, Roxanne and Casey O'Neill, they're both grapplers, so that's going to be something that you're going to see play out here, and you're going to see what happens. Recently, Roxanne has been getting taken down and controlled in certain fights, like her last fight with Tyler Santos, but I feel like Roxanne gave Tyler the hardest fight of anyone besides when Tyler lost her original fight in the UFC. I mean, Tyler wasn't able to ragdoll her like she did a lot of her other opponents, man. I mean, Roxanne was able to get back up to her feet, have a lot of clinch control time herself, and even though she clearly lost the fight, she didn't really take much damage on the ground. She was able to use those half-guard sweeps to get back up to her feet almost every time pretty effectively. Her cardio is always good. She's always getting me there to try to win the fight and push the pace. And if she gets on top of these girls, she's a boulder. I mean, she's not necessarily the most dangerous fighter on top, even though she does have some good finishes with her elbows, especially when you go back and look at her career like in Invicta and things like that. In the UFC, she hasn't gotten a lot of the high-level finishes, but, she is able to just control people and hold them down. And Casey O'Neill has shown more of an ability to be a girl that goes for it on the ground, goes for the finishes. She goes for a lot of submissions. She likes to take the back, be very aggressive with her ground and pound, and more of a girl that takes chances on the mat. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the ground. I mean, if Casey O'Neill is, really, really trying to pass, be really super aggressive, she could get swept and, end up on bottom and be held down. And, this is a fight that I think is much more closer than the odds makers indicate. I mean, when you look at Roxanne, I think that she has way more high-level experience. I mean, you saw Casey O'Neill versus Laura Procopio, fairly close fight. She was getting taken down, and, I feel like Roxanne is on another level grappling in comparison to Procopio. I just feel like this fight is a lot closer than the line indicates. I really like Casey O'Neill, man, and I've been picking her in all her fights. I'm a fan of picking her, so man, I'm going to pick her here. I want to kind of pick Roxanne in this fight just because of the line. And, if I was going to say to bet the fight, man, I would definitely recommend a bet on Roxanne Modafferi. I mean, I think the line's a little bit jank, man, and I definitely think that, Roxanne is live to win this fight. I think it's a very competitive fight. I think it'll be 1-1, probably going into the third, and Casey will be a little bit more spry, younger, maybe a little bit better cardio, and be able to close it out in the third round. But this is a prediction I think of a fight could go either way. So I'm looking forward to this fight, but I'm going to go with Casey O'Neill via close decision. And finally, we got the last fight of the prelims here. We got Andrei Arlovski, the former UFC heavyweight champ, who, man, I mean, 43 years old. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights. He's been out there getting it. He's been doing really well recently, and won 2 in a row. Been kind of the gatekeeper to the top 25. I mean, I don't even know if I would say gatekeeper to the top 15, because fighting guys like Carlos Felipe, he's fighting guys like Chase Sherman, Tanner Bozer, Felipe Lins. I mean, these are not high-level guys, but, he's able to go in there, and they're close fights. Every single Andre fight, man, recently has been a close decision either way. But, Andre just has a way of weaseling these decisions. He has really good movement. He's super experienced at this point. He can switch stances, and he does a good job of just kind of keeping the volume fairly high. He's fast. He has power, so he keeps guys honest, and they don't really get super aggressive with him. So sometimes he can really lull the pace of the fight and make it a really slow-paced fight. But with Jared Vanderaa, I feel like Jared Vanderaa is getting a little bit disrespected here by a lot of people. I mean, people are picking Chase Sherman to beat Andrei Arlovski, and you're telling me that Chase Sherman is better than Jared Vanderaa? I mean, I totally disagree. Jared Vanderaa is a big guy. I mean, the guy's 200 cuts weight to make the limit, 80-inch reach, and the guy's 29 years old. He's clearly improving. I mean, you look at the guy when he fought Harry Hunsucker, right? And when he fought on the regional scene, his striking was very bad. His defense was atrocious. I mean, the guy was not doing a great job with, being mobile. His head movement wasn't there. He just was not looking very good on the feet. And then you see him, just fight with Justin Tafa, and the guy's movement around. He has good footwork. His head movement looks way improved. He has great gas tank. He's pushing the pace with his combinations, doing really well. And, I was impressed with that fight. Even his last fight with Alexander Romanov, I mean, he was able to get back up to his feet a couple of times after he got taken down. He landed some decent punches on Romanov. And I think Vanderaa is a little bit underrated here. I mean, I think that some people think that he's just not a very good fighter, but I tend to disagree. I mean, he's a big guy as well. And he's had issues with people that are superior grapplers than him that can hold him in the clinch and beat him up there, take him down and beat him up on top. But Andrei Arlovski is not that guy. Arlovski's not going to look for takedowns. And if they do end up in grappling situations, I actually think it's going to be Vanderaa with the size that wears out Arlovski and ends up on the better end of that in the long term. Vanderaa on the feet, I think, is not maybe quite as technical or sharp as Arlovski, but he is very durable. And he does a good job keeping the volume high. He's improved his defense and his offense with his mobility. His output is really good. And I think that he's just going to be able to do more than Arlovski in this fight and pick up the win as the slight underdog. So I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I think a lot of people are going to be rolling with Arlovski in this fight. And a lot of times I do pick Arlovski, even when he's an underdog. I've done pretty well predicting Arlovski fights. But I think Vanderaa, it's going to be a little bit too much for him. I think that he's not going to get tired or not going to, be a small heavyweight like a guy like Carlos Felipe or gas out like a guy like Chase Sherman or be small like another guy like Tanner Bozer. I think that he's going to be a huge guy that's going to be pushing the pace, that's going to be looking to really, make it a dog fight. I think that Arlovski's going to slow down, and I think Vanderaa is just going to take over a little bit. I think he's going to be a little bit superior. And I think it's going to be more of a striking fight, but I think Vanderaa is going to get the job done here. And finally, we're kicking off the main card here. We got Bobby Green. He's going to be taking on Nasrat Haqparast. And this is a hardcore fan favorite fight here. We got Bobby Green, who's one of the hardcore fans' favorite fighters for sure. And he's a guy who's gained notoriety on the fight scene since way back in the day. I mean, he did good in Strikeforce. He got brought over to the UFC. And he went on a big run when he first got into the company. He won his first 4 fights in a row. He beat Josh Thompson, came up short against Edson Barbosa in quest to make it 5 in a row. And after that, I mean, it looked like he might never bounce back after that fight. He took a year and a half away from the sport. He returned and got knocked out in the first round against Dustin Poirier. Then he lost to Rashid Magomedov, went to a draw with Lando Venata. And that was 4 fights in a row without a victory for Green. And, Green did not win a fight in over 3 years at that point, but he was able to save his job. He beat Eric Koch in January of 2018. But things didn't really get much better for him, though, because he lost his next 2 fights in a row after that. He lost to Jakar Close, Francisco Trinaldo. Both those fights were controversial decisions, but at that point, Green only had 1 win in his last 7 fights. But, man, this is why you got to respect Bobby Green, man. I mean, he kept his head down. I think, a lot of people would have quit in that situation, but even after some close losses that easily could have went his way, coming up short 6 times out of 7, he still had the resolve to turn it around. He won 3 fights in a row in 2020. Had a really controversial decision once again where a lot of people felt like he was robbed in a fight against Thiago Moises. Had a really good back and forth fight in a loss to Rafael Fiziev, who was a top 10 fighter. And then he came back in his last fight and he looked like a killer. He knocked out Reginald Iaquinta in the first round. And his opponent here, Nasrat Haqparast, he's been a little bit up and down in his career as well. He had high hopes as a prospect, and he still has a lot of high-level experience. He's only 26 years old. For his UFC debut, he got thrown in there with the former Bellator world champion, Marcin Held. And he has wins over some nice vets like Mark Jacasey. He beat Joaquim Silva. Recently, though, he hasn't really shown he's quite top level. Came up short against Drew Dober, lost to Dan Hooker. This is another tough fight for Nasrat after the Hooker fight. And if I'm honest, man, I'd probably have looked for an easier fight, but that usually isn't the case in the UFC. Haqparast, obviously both these guys are strikers. Haqparast is a southpaw. He's a guy that uses a lot of movement on the outside. Like, he has pretty good footwork and he's explosive and kind of likes to move around and then close the distance with these big explosive hooks or overhands, and he has big knockout power. But he throws a lot of wide shots. He does have a decent jab and some crosses when he lets him go, but it's just not a big part of his game. It's few and far between with that. It's more movement and trying to catch these fighters with these big looping hooks as they come in and trying to knock them out. And he has big knockout power. I mean, the guy has some good highlight reel KOs. He does a good job of, in certain fights, he fights to the right game plan. Like you saw his fight against Mark Jacasey. He was pressuring more. He was jamming the space, being very effective with that. And then you see other fights where he allows guys to come to him and, try to counter. So he can play, both ways. And I do think that on the feet he's durable and he's heavy-handed, which is something that is a good combination to have. But he does have kind of bad defense. I mean, the guy does hold his hands low. He drops his hands after exchanges. And, being southpaw, he doesn't really use his kicks that effectively. I mean, I would think that he would maybe use that rear leg kick a little bit better or maybe try to, just mix it up a little bit more. But he's not really the biggest kicker. With Bobby Green, I mean, he's a guy that you always want to see him do a little bit more in his fights, right? Like, he likes to hang back on the outside, look to counter. He has a really fun style to watch where, he has great boxing. He switches stances, super fluid, shoulder roll in return. He does a great job of avoiding shots. His defense is super on point. He has great cardio. He can grapple. He can wrestle. He can strike. So he has it all. I mean, the guy is just, sometimes he can kind of hang back and, let guys come to him. He's point fighting and, the judges don't see it his way. He doesn't control the center in a lot of fights, and he doesn't let off as much offense as his opponent, even though he does it's like he's hanging back and he's maybe landing more, but guys just don't see that because he's not doing these big actions. He's not throwing these long combinations. He's not being super active. He's having lulls in activity, and that can lose him fights, but he's getting a little bit better with that. Hopefully his last fight, getting the knockout over Al Iaquinta, is going to give him some confidence to really let go with his hands. But this is a tricky fight. I mean, I think a lot of people are confident in Bobby Green. But, I mean, Nasrat's a guy that's going to be moving a lot. And Bobby's not going to get the type of fight that he usually gets or that he does a good job in with guys coming to him trying to counter, him trying to be slick. He's going to have to be a little bit more offensive in this fight. and try to push the pace, or someone is going to have to do it, or it's going to be a really boring fight. And I do think that Bobby should look to grapple in this fight, potentially try to mix it up, because Nasrat has cardio issues when grappling comes into play. Dan Hooker was able to take him down and hold him down in his last fight, who's a kickboxer and not a great grappler. So I think Bobby Green should mix it up, but Bobby Green isn't really a guy that goes for takedowns too much, and I don't really know if he's going to do that. So I think this fight's going to play out like a normal Bobby Green fight, where Bobby's going to have some time walking him down. He's going to be throwing some really nice feints. He's going to be landing some nice counters, but there's going to be a lot of lulls. There's going to be a lot of times where Nasrat is coming in with these big hooks, and maybe he's not landing, but they look, kind of cool because he's just throwing his whole body into it, and Bobby's just avoiding, not really doing much, so maybe the judge could remember that. And I think it's going to be like another close type of split decision fight. If Bobby mixes in the wrestling, or if Bobby can push the pace and let his hands go, I think that, he can maybe start to get his rhythm. And because Nasrat really throws a lot of wide shots, a lot of big looping hooks, and I think Bobby Green is faster, could be a little bit sharper, but I think he's going to respect that power. He's going to not want to chase so much, and it's going to turn into, a regular kind of Bobby Green fight where it's touch and go. And I'm going to go with Bobby, but this fight is, in my opinion, a dog or pass, like a lot of Bobby Green fights when he's the favorite, because he just leaves it on the table, and I definitely think Nasrat has a chance to get the win, but I'm going to go with Bobby Green by decision. With this next fight, we got Kyler Phillips. He's going to be taking down Marcelo Rojo, and this is an action fight. I mean, both these guys are killer strikers. Kyler Phillips, he's a guy that, they call him the Matrix for a reason. He has sick movement, does a really good job kind of using his footwork, pulling guys into these really good techniques, nice high kicks. He throws, some really nice combinations. He'll mix it up body head, and then he has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He has good timing on his level changes. His cardio is pretty good when he can be the bully, and when he's getting the takedowns, controlling on top, working his ground and pound, and everything's going his way. But it seems like mentally he can kind of start to check out of a fight when it starts to get hard, and he can start to get really tired. Like his last fight with Holly and Paiva, I almost give him a bit of a pass, because the dude almost knocked him out bad, and he let off so much offense that he had to have gotten a little bit tired. But he has to have better cardio in this one. Obviously, his last fight, he dominated the first round, lost the last two, and ended up having a draw. And on the feet in this fight, I do think that Marcelo Rojo with the basics, the guy comes forward, really good 1-2s. He has a nice jab. He does a good job with the low kicks, and he's very effective with just the basics, keeping the pressure, being a dog, staying in your face. He's super aggressive. He has some nice power. He's pretty sharp. So, he's a tough guy to deal with, especially if you slow down, then he's going to start to be in Kyler Phillips' ass. So, he has to really, really, push the cardio, Kyler Phillips. But if the main difference in this fight, in my opinion, and something that could make it an easy night for Kyler Phillips, is just take this guy down, man. I think that his grappling is on a way different level. We've seen Rojo submitted multiple times in the past, and even though he has a black belt, I believe himself, I don't really think he's very good off of his back, especially in MMA. And I think if Phillips could take him down, he could get the finish via ground and pound or via submission. So I think Phillips mixing up the takedowns, that's going to be contingent on him winning this fight pretty easily. But if he does that, I do think that he'll probably be able to find the finish on the ground. I just feel like Kyler Phillips is the bigger guy as well, even though Rojo's moving down from 145 for his last fight where he came in on short notice. He's usually a 35er, and Phillips is a big guy for 35s. I feel like Phillips is going to be able to hit the takedowns and dominate on top, win that way. So I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips in this one. But if this fight stays on the feet for 3 rounds, I do think it'll be a dogfight, and Rojo is a live underdog. The line is too wide, man. I could never, say bet on Phillips at minus 350. So Rojo has some value, but I think Phillips just has too big of an advantage on the ground. And here we go, man. We got Derrick Brunson going to be taking on Jared Cannonier. This is third fight up from the card. This is one of the biggest fights on the card for sure. We got the number 1 contenders fight most likely. Just recently Sean Strickland won last week and didn't have a great performance, so I don't really feel like he's going to pass either of these guys up for the title shot. Derrick Brunson, he has been on a tear recently, man. He's been an underdog. He's been winning all his fights. Blonde Brunson doesn't lose. Underdog King. He's been killing all these prospects, and Jared Cannonier, I mean, the guy, since he's gone down to 185, has just been a monster, taking guys out. His last fight against Kelvin Gastelum, he put some major damage on Gastelum. He dropped him, but I actually felt like that was a, very close competitive fight, to be honest with you. But Jared Cannonier got the win. He's been able to win all his fights at middleweight outside of his loss to Robert Whittaker. So Cannonier is one of these guys that's a really high-level middleweight that has yet to fight Israel Adesanya. So when you get those guys, there's not that many of them, so obviously they have a shorter route to the title. And if Cannonier can get the second win in a row over Derek Brunson, I do think he's going to get the belt, get the title shot. So this is a really, really big fight for the middleweight division. Obviously, Derek Brunson has already fought Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker, so if he wins, he's going to be looking at a rematch for the belt. But Brunson is on another level right now. He's looking different than he ever had. If you look at his previous career, he was not training with the highest level guys. I mean, he was training in Wilmington, North Carolina. He was training in his own gym, Brunson MMA and Fitness. Recently, since he's gone on this win streak, he's went over to Henry Hooft. He started training at Stanford MMA with some of the best middleweights and some of the best welterweights in the world, best light heavyweights in the world. And it's shown, man. I mean, he's working with Henry Hooft, and just his ability to close the distance, his fight IQ has went up a huge level. And I think Derek Brunson is underrated by so many people, man. I mean, the guy has the best wrestling in middleweight by a large margin. I used to have people telling me, like, Robert Whittaker is a better wrestler than Derek Brunson. We got Jack Hermanson, he's a better wrestler than Derek Brunson. Like, no, man. Derek Brunson is the best wrestler in that division. The guy freaking is a beast. I mean, the guy's single leg and double leg is amazing. I mean, he has great timing. He does a good job of keeping guys in the center of the octagon with his takedowns, and does a good job of positioning you off the cage if you do try to get your back up against the cage. He's very smart with that, and that's going to be huge in this fight with Jared Cannonier. On the feet, obviously, if it stays on the feet for 15 minutes, Brunson cannot compete with a guy like Cannonier. He's super sharp, super tight with his counters, really good check hook, good 1-2s, really nasty jab. His leg kicks are sick. He has huge power. So Cannonier, I mean, the guy's a fast-twitch knockout artist, and Derek Brunson, he's a knockout artist in his own realm, but in a different way, where he just overwhelms you with his explosiveness and bombs on you, and he can get you out of there. He has a long reach. He can close the distance really quickly. And, his southpaw stance, it kind of gives you kind of a little bit of a different look, and it's hard to kind of get ready for that. But I do think with this fight with Jared Cannonier, it's obviously what both guys are going to want to do. Brunson's going to want to bring it to the ground, control on top, and Cannonier is going to be trying to keep it standing. If he gets taken down, work back up to his feet quickly, get Brunson a little bit tired potentially, make him make a mistake, catch him with that big shot, and knock him out. And I think that Jared Cannonier obviously does have big knockout power. He's very sharp and tight, but his volume is really low, and I think that him being like a guy that you could just knock anyone dead in the world, or, oh, he's so dangerous, is a little bit overinflated, because the guy doesn't have a lot of knockouts against a lot of high-level opponents. He did catch Jack Hermanson with that uppercut and knocked him out, but he lost the first round in that fight. He did catch David Branch at 85 and finished him, but he doesn't really have a lot of high-level, knockouts throughout his whole career. And Brunson, if you look at it, I mean, the guy has been finished by Jacare Souza, who obviously maybe isn't the highest-level striker in the world, but he has big power, and he's a guy that you don't want to put on your back, or don't want to put on his back, So Brunson didn't want to take him down. He was forced to strike with him, and Jacare got him twice. He knocked him out. But Yoel Romero, I mean, that guy's a killer. Getting knocked out by him is, nothing to be ashamed of. Robert Whittaker getting hit with the head kick by him and knocked out. I mean, nothing to be ashamed of once again. Getting freaking kneed in the face by Izzy and finished. I mean, those type of things that can happen to anyone in the world, man. So it's not like he's getting knocked out by just straight bums or guys that are not on that level. I mean, he's right there. And one thing about Jared Cannonier is the guy has good takedown defense against the cage, really good. I mean, the guy's get-ups against the cage are elite as well, and especially at 185s, he's really physical. He's going to be super strong and hard to take down. But if you take him down in the center of the cage, he, does not really have a great get-up game, man. I mean, if you could take him down with this, like Glover Teixeira was taking him down with the single legs extremely easily, and he was holding him in half guard in the middle of the octagon, and there was really no movement from Cannonier at all. He wasn't able to get back up to his feet, and I've seen that in his other fights as well, where, if you could take him down in the center of the cage, you can control him, and Brunson is really good at that. I don't think Brunson is going to be quite as, aggressive on the ground is a guy like Hermanson, who was trying to take the back and put the hooks in right away when he got the takedown. He's going to settle on the mat. He's going to, look to work and hold him down in the full guard. He doesn't really care if it's a boring fight. He's shown that. And he's going to have confidence in his grappling, man. I mean, he just got his first submission in a long time in his last fight. I just feel like people are underestimating Brunson again coming into this spot, man. I mean, they just think Jared Cannonier is going to come in here and knock him out. But Cannonier, he's low volume as it is. He knows that Brunson's going to be looking to close the gap and take him down. I think that's going to limit his striking arsenal even more. I don't think he's going to throw many leg kicks. He's going to be looking for pure hands. And early on, I think Brunson's going to be the faster, more explosive guy. I think that Brunson's going to be able to close that gap, get in the clinch. And if he can get the takedowns early with the single or the double off of a good time shot, hold him on his back in that first round, I think that's going to go a huge way to him winning the fight. And, he's going to have to get knocked out over 3 rounds. Recently, he's been getting into all these 5-round fights. He's had a high-level gas tank that he's had to secure for those fights. He's going to be bringing it into a 3-round fight here where he could push, higher level of cardio. He hasn't been knocked out in a long time. I mean, the last time he got finished was against Israel Adesanya. That was almost 4 years ago at this point. And, Cannonier, a lot of people love Cannonier, man. I mean, when he fought Robert Whittaker, I remember I picked Whittaker, and a ton of people were picking Jared Cannonier, and, Whittaker ended up beating him pretty easily. And, I think Cannonier is one of these guys that a lot of people see him in certain fights, and he can look really good. He's really skillful. But, man, I mean, I don't think people will give Derek Brunson the respect for the level of wrestler he is, and I think he's going to show it again on Saturday night. I think he's going to go in there. I think he's going to be able to hit the takedowns, hold Jared Cannonier on his back at least 2 rounds, and I don't think he's going to get knocked out in this one. So, I mean, as long as he doesn't get finished by strikes, I think he has a really good chance of winning the decision. I mean, Brunson, he's 7-2 in decisions. He had the 1 decision loss to Anderson Silva, which everyone knows is kind of bullshit, and then he has another split decision loss. Jared Cannonier, he's 3-3 in decisions. Much worse record. I just think Brunson, man, this line should be a pick'em, or he should be the slight favorite. He's proven it over higher level guys. Cannonier, to me, has not done that. So I'm going to go with Derek Brunson. And we got the co-main event here. We got Derrick the Black Beast Lewis. He's going to be taking on Tai Tuivasa. And Derrick Lewis, he's coming back home again, Houston, Texas. He's trying to redeem himself after that bad fight he had against Ciryl Gane for the interim belt in Texas. And, man, I feel like he is going to have a much better showing. I mean, obviously the last time it was for the heavyweight title. He was the main event. He had a lot of media. Now, he still is a big deal. I mean, any single fight that Derrick Lewis is going to be in is going to be a huge fight. But, he is in the co-main event. He's fighting a guy that's lower than him on the rankings. He's the slight favorite. Last time he was a big underdog. I think there's, much less stress and much less things for him to worry about coming into this fight than there was against this fight with Ciryl Gane. And a lot of people were doubting him in his last win, man. When he fought Chris Daukaus, I saw almost everyone was picking Chris Daukaus to win that fight, but Derrick Lewis went out there, got the first round knockout, and won me some money. So I was happy for Derrick Lewis that night. But yeah, I mean, we got him, and he's going to be taking on a really fun fighter in this one. I mean, this fight's a fun fight just in general. I mean, we got the Shui guy, we got Tai Tuivasa, the full send guy, but I don't know. I mean, Tai Tuivasa, he's been in there and he's been taking care of business. He's gotten 4 knockouts in a row, but this is a different level of competition here, man. I mean, you're going in there with guys like Augusto Sakai. You're going in there with guys like Harry Hunt-Sucker. You're going in there with just some, guys like Stefan Struve, and now you're going to go in there with Derrick Lewis. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people, act like Derrick Lewis isn't skillful, like he's a bomb or something, but the guy's super explosive. He's huge. He's very, very, very fast. He's mobile. He can control his power and keep his power for 3 or 5 rounds. And the guy's just dangerous, man. He's durable. When you close the gap on him, he can explode on you and knock you out. And, I mean, Tai Tuivasa, this guy's a beast too. I mean, Tai Tuivasa has some really nasty leg kicks. That's going to be something that I think he's going to be looking to throw in this fight. I mean, if he can get some leg kicks off on Derrick Lewis early, 4 or 5 leg kicks, maybe you can demobilize him and then kind of, win the fight that way. But Tai Tuivasa, he likes to fight a lot in close quarters, like in the clinch. He likes the dirty box, and I don't think he wants to be in those areas with Derrick Lewis, man. I mean, the guy's just too big, too explosive, too strong, and at range, I think Derrick Lewis is way bigger. I mean, he has a 4-inch reach advantage. He's going to be a little bit taller. And I think that the size is pretty significantly advantage towards Derrick Lewis, even though Ty's a big boy too. And I just think that he has more high-level experience, man. I think that he's going to see kind of what Tai has brought in the past. One thing as well, I don't really necessarily see it happening, but if Derrick Lewis gets on top of Tai Tuivasa, this fight's over. I mean, he'll win the fight with ground and pound right away almost, I believe, because I've seen Tai off of his back, and it's not pretty at all. So, I mean, if there's any fight ever that Derrick Lewis would do it, and I mean, he has shots of takedowns before the past, but, time a takedown in this one, if you can get it to the ground, you're going to win the fight, I believe. So, but Derrick Lewis, I just feel like he's too much, man. Tai Tuivasa taking a huge step up in competition. And at heavyweight, I mean, this is, the type of steps you could take, because it's not like if Tai Tuivasa goes out there and knocks out Derrick Lewis, it's going to be a huge shock. They're two huge guys that throw leather, and, one guy's going to get knocked the fuck out. But I just think the knockout king, at home, he has a lot to prove here, man. I mean, his last fight in Houston obviously didn't sit well with him. It was one of the worst performances of his career. And, this loss would be a bad loss for him. I mean, when you look at his losses in recent years, he's only lost to the creme de la creme, man, the best of, the division has to offer. I mean, so if he's out here and he loses to a guy like Tai Tuivasa, I don't necessarily think that's going to be a good look for him. I also think he has some other motivation, at least a little bit, in the fact that he does have a loss to Mark Hunt, so he could get one over on Australia again, get one over on that camp a little bit. And I think Derrick Lewis is going to get this one done in his hometown. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance, get the win that he wanted to get last time, and get the first round knockout. So I don't think there's going to be any shoeys on Saturday night. I think Derrick Lewis is going to end that business and knock out Tai Tuivasa. And up next here we got the main event. We got Israel Adesanya. He's going to be taking on Robert Whittaker. And I couldn't be more excited for this fight, man. I'm super excited for this one. I mean, obviously, it's a rematch from a few years ago when Israel Adesanya took the belt from the Reaper. But Robert Whittaker, this guy, I don't get how, if you're looking at this line, right, Robert Whittaker plus 225, how can you not put a little bit of money on that, man? I mean, Robert Whittaker gets anyone in the world at that price, I think is a little bit ridiculous. But obviously, we saw the first fight where Israel Adesanya did style on him. I mean, the guy hurt him at the end of the first round, almost knocked him out, and Whittaker couldn't recover, and he finished him in the second. But since then, a lot of things has changed. I mean, there's only been one guy that has lost since that last fight, and it isn't Robert Whittaker. It's Israel Adesanya, who went up to 205. He lost to Jan Blachowicz, and he's actually the only fighter in UFC history that went up in weight, tried to become a double champion, failed. So, I mean, that's nothing to be ashamed of, I guess. But he is the only one in UFC history to go up and lose the fight trying to get the second belt. But we got Israel Adesanya. He's defended his middleweight belt quite a few times now at this point. He beat Marvin Vettori again in his last fight to bounce back from that loss. And Robert Whittaker, though, since then has gone 3-0. He won 3 fights in 2020. It's been a few months since his last fight, I believe 10 months, so it's been a little while. But if you remember the last time when him and Izzy fought, he hadn't fought in well over a year. He had a lot of issues in terms of he was pulling out of fights. He had health issues. And, the fight was in Australia. I think there was a lot of things that, went on the side of Israel that didn't help Whittaker. Whittaker was coming into a fight on, obviously limited experience in recent years. He had not been fighting very actively. He had come off some injuries. He had come off some really tough fights. He was thrown right into that, main event slot in his home country. Against a guy from New Zealand, and it was just a lot to deal with, I believe, mentally as well. But now we got a Robert Whittaker who won 3 fights in a row in 2021, and he looked great. I mean, the guy was just on fire, dominated Kelvin Gastelum in his last fight, and he is just much more in form now. He doesn't have the injuries there. He has everything behind him. And the guy's not old. I mean, the guy's 31 years old, Robert Whittaker, man. I mean, I think sometimes people, I don't know, man, they don't really give Whittaker the respect he deserves sometimes because, a lot of people pick him to lose in a lot of fights. They were picking him to lose against Jared Cannonier, against Darren Till. And I just feel like it's man, this is Robert Whittaker. You guys know this guy's a bad motherfucker, man. I mean, this guy only lost to Israel Adesanya in the division in his whole career. And now he's coming back. He's getting a second chance to get his belt back against a guy that he doesn't like, that, knocked him out in, pretty embarrassing fashion the last time in his home country. he's coming for it, man. I really do think Robert Whittaker, he's going to bring a different fight. It's going to be, fireworks, and it's going to be something that's going to be fun to watch. I mean, I do think Israel, he has that style. It's just tough to beat, man. The guy has an 80-inch reach. He's 6'4". He has extremely fast footwork. He's super mobile. And even though he's a little bit flat-footed and he'll let you back him up to the cage, he wants you to kind of pressure him. He throws those kicks on the outside, really nice leg kicks. He throws, good body kicks, high kicks. He has all the kicks in his arsenal. And then when you pressure him, that's when he hits you with those pull counters. He hit him with that, pull counter, like 1-2 at the end of the first round. Then he hit him with that check hook in the second round. Really good check hooks. And, he's just really good when, he gets space. He starts to get his reads. And in his last fight with Robert Whittaker, Whittaker was doing a lot of lunging in and lunging out. And that's just a terrible game plan against Israel, because once he starts to, see when you're going to lunge in, that's when he's going to start catching you. He's going to hit you as you're coming in. And, it's not going to be a good night for you, as we saw with Whittaker. But the way to really give Izzy problems, and we've seen multiple fighters do it, is, stay in his face. You got to pressure, man. You got to be, right in his face the whole time. But you can't, back him up to the cage and get in exchanges. It has to be a, effective pressure where you're jabbing him. You're like, if I was Robert Whittaker, what my game plan in this fight would be was, I wouldn't do as much lunging. I would do a lot more sticking on the outside as well, even though, that's an area maybe where Israel has the advantage in terms of he can land and you can't. If you can use a lot of feints, just try to back him up. And even though if you get him to the cage, don't really engage in that, pocket exchange. Maybe just try to, jab him a little bit, try to hit him with some shots to try to make him open up. And then counter the counter of Israel Adesanya. Try to mix in the level changes early. Even if you're not successful with the takedowns, I think that it'd just be smart to mix in the level changes, because then it'd open up the rest of your striking game. In the first fight with Israel, Robert Whittaker didn't not have success. I think people, obviously he got schooled. He got dealt with because he got finished basically twice. But the first round he had a lot of success with his jab. He was coming forward. He was countering the leg kicks with the jab effectively. And he was checking a lot of the leg kicks of Israel. I don't think the leg kicks of Israel are going to be too effective in this fight. Actually, if you go back and watch the first fight, Robert Whittaker's leg kicks at the end of his combinations were very effective. They were actually starting to, bother Israel a little bit. But, Whittaker was just doing too much of that, lunging in and lunging out. And you knew eventually that he was going to get clipped. But he actually had a lot of success, landing some decent shots early on Israel. Even in the second round after he got rocked, he was, landing some decent shots. He landed a nice hook that looked like it even stunned Israel a little bit. But, I feel like had too much kinetic energy too. Like maybe he was too amped up and a little nervous, coming off that long layoff. He was going in there in Australia, and he threw a lot of head strikes in the first round, man. He threw triple the output that he usually throws. He was bombing. And I feel like in this fight, he needs to lower the volume, lower that, in and out lunging movement. Like I said, try to just maybe use the jab, use some shots, try to get him to come to you a little bit more, feint a lot more, level change, try to make it more of a smart fight, and don't try to take him down at the center of the at the cage, because Israel has really good takedown defense against the cage. The guy does a really good job of using the underhooks. He has a wide base, really tall guy, good balance in general. But if you could take him down in the center of the octagon, Kelvin was timing some really nice body locks against Robert was timing some really nice body locks against Kelvin Gastelum, where he was taking him down in the center of the octagon. And when Robert gets on top, the guy is really, really good with his top control. It's hard to get up from under him. He can just blanket you. He's never had a submission in the UFC, but he just does a really good job controlling. He can work ground and pound and just keep it on the mat. And in this fight, I do think Robert's going to come in here and do much better, man. I think that he's going to be able to kind of build off that last fight. He's going to see what he did wrong, and he's going to correct it a little bit, and I think he's going to mix it up. I think he's going to use his jab way more. You saw Marvin Vettori was effective with the jab against Israel, and if you go back and watch that Israel versus Marvin fight, it was fairly competitive. Israel was landing some nice counter uppercuts and some nice counter twos, but he wasn't really super accurate or effective with his hands in that one. He really won it with a lot of the leg kicks and a lot of just catching him with the body kicks, the front kicks up the middle. And with Whittaker is much better with defending the kicks. He was checking a lot of the kicks of Izzy, And I think that he just sees those kicks a lot better than a guy like Marvin Vettori did. He's much faster, quicker. And, Israel, obviously, he's going to have the same game plan in this fight where he's going to have in all of his fights, which is he's going to be looking to stay on the back foot, kick you from the outside. And, when you get over-aggressive, he's going to look to counter you with his pull counters and with his big punches. And he has knockout power, very precise. He, has really nice, counter kicks. And his counter defensive wrestling and his, ability to work his submission game off his back is always improving. Even though I feel like his ground game isn't the best. I mean, if you look at his fight with Jan Blachowicz, left a lot to be desired there on the ground in that fight. I do think that he obviously is working on his takedown defense constantly. He's working on his guard game, his get-up game constantly because he knows guys just want to take him down. And if he can keep it on the feet, gets 99% of people, he's going to win the fight. But, man, there's a lot to say. I think there's a lot to say in this fight about, the confidence level of both guys. I think Robert is still very confident. I don't think he's one of these guys that, even though he got knocked out, he's going to be nervous coming into this fight and not have the same mindset. I think he's going to be very, very confident. I think he's going to be, ready to surprise Israel and take the belt back. He's younger than Israel, and, he's still there, man. He's still right in his prime. And with Israel Adesanya, I think Israel's going to come into this fight a little bit arrogant, man. I think that he's going to kind of overlook Robert Whittaker a little bit because I do think that obviously already knocking Robert Whittaker out, he is going to think that Whittaker really is not going to be able to bring much for him. I really do kind of believe that. And I think it could be, a bad thing for him, man. I think that Robert Whittaker, it's just with this fight, right, it's there's some things that Whittaker could do to be effective and win the fight. And there's some things that Israel obviously already has shown that he's superior at in terms of the range. If Whittaker, really, really closes the gap hastily, he can knock him out, and he's just very accurate. He has really, really, really good counter striking. So that's just something that Whittaker is going to have to deal with. But ultimately, man, I'm going to go with Robert Whittaker because I just feel like there's going to be a third fight here. I don't think that people take into account, man. You have to really never underestimate the heart of a champion sometimes, man. There's this guy, Robert Whittaker, who won 3 fights in a row after the loss to Israel. He's right back in the same situation. A loss here would be devastating to his career. The guy is one of the best middleweights of all time. And I just feel like he's going to show up here, man. I think he's going to kind of have a really, really, really good performance. I think that he's going to win a decision here over Israel Adesanya. I think it's going to be a close fight. But I think Robert Whittaker is going to get his revenge. And the last time when Israel and Robert fought, I was very confident in Israel getting the win. There was different circumstances, like I said, with Robert coming off the layoff. He had taken a lot of damage in recent fights back then. I don't think his confidence was quite as high as it is now. And Robert had only had 4 takedowns in, I believe, 15 UFC fights before then. Recently, he had 4 takedowns in his fight alone against Kelvin Gastelum. So I think he is kind of, even though he's fighting other opponents, he's thinking of ways that he could work in, things that he could use to beat a guy like Israel Adesanya. And, Robert Whittaker, man, he's going to show people, I think, on Saturday, why he's one of the greatest of all time and why he's going to be in the UFC Hall of Fame one day. And Israel Adesanya and him are going to have a third fight. And I don't even know who I'm going to pick in that fight. But, I really do think Robert Whittaker is going to go in there, surprise a lot of people on Saturday night, man. I'm going to pick Robert Whittaker to get the upset. Who knows? Obviously, we're making predictions here. I could be getting this one wrong. But recently, man, I picked a lot of, good upsets on, for title fights. So, I picked Jan over Dominic Reyes. I picked Rose both times over Weili Zhang. I got Juliana Pena. I got Glover Teixeira beating Jan Blachowicz for the belt. Charles over Dustin. So, a lot of these title fights, man, there's upsets, and I just feel like Robert Whittaker, the line is crazy, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm going with this side. I feel like you can't be disrespecting an all-time legend like that, plus 225 odds. I think that Robert Whittaker, he saw him the first time. He's going to go in there. He's going to be much more composed. He's not going to be as wild in this one. He's going to be a little bit smarter with his pressure. He's not going to engage in the pocket as much. He's going to be able to use the jab, back him up, mix in the takedowns. The head kicks were really close to landing on Israel as well in that fight. And I just think Whittaker is going to be sharper here and, show everyone why he's one of the best of all time, like I said. So I'm going to go with Robert Whittaker to win a decision, win the belt back, and they'll probably have a third fight sometime down the line, but going to go with Robert Whittaker. So there you have it, guys. That's the full card breakdown for UFC 271. Should be an awesome night in Houston on Saturday. But yeah, as far as the parlay of the week goes, I'm going to do a parlay of the week with Jeremiah Wells and Sergey Morozov. For my most confident pick of the week, it's going to be Jeremiah Wells. So thanks for watching, guys. Like I said earlier in the video, let's try to get it to 200 likes. So make sure to hit that like button. Comment down below what you think of my predictions. Do you think I'm crazy for predicting some of these underdogs? Do you agree with me, or who you're betting on? I'm interested to see some other people's opinions for this card. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed the video and you're not subscribed. I put out these videos weekly, so really appreciate it if you came back and checked it out. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll be back later.